Well, hello guys, it's Cowboy Store. Hope you all are having a good end of your week. Just wanted to go over a breakdown of the Cowboys roster moves since the cuts have occurred, the current state of the Cowboys roster. Of course, keep in mind that this could change after everyone has cut all their players. It's always a possibility the Cowboys could end up cutting somebody that they actually ended up saving on the roster if they find somebody out there on the waiver wire that they like better than who they have on their current roster. But as it stands now, these are the players that have gotten released by the Cowboys and or traded. There was one trade. I was kind of glad to see this trade go down. I don't know much about the player we acquired, but he can't be much worse than one Boss Man Fat. That's right. Boss Man Fat has been traded to the Miami Dolphins for one exact player, same position, cornerback, from the Miami Dolphins by the name of Noah Agami, something like that. He's got a hard name to say, but anyway, that gets close enough. The Cowboys have traded for Noah in exchange for Boss Man Fat. So maybe Boss Man Fat needed a change of scenery just as Noah did, but Noah Ignagami, it's a tongue twister. But anyway, he was a first round draft pick for the Dolphins. So man, who knows? Maybe Dan Quinn can make something out of him. But here are the other players that were released by the Dallas Cowboys yesterday. Seth Green, tight end, has been released. Ben Bonigwe, defensive end, has been released. Alec Lindstrom, offensive lineman. Quentin Bohanna, which was kind of a surprise, but we already had two other nose tackles, so he was probably going to get released. Sheldrick Redwine, he was a safety. He's been released. Dennis Houston, wide receiver, released. Jabril Cox, in a kind of a surprise to me, was released. They gave Jabril Cox several opportunities to come back from that injury, and it never materialized for Jabril Cox. Hopefully, he can get on with someone else. Malik Davis was a real shocker to me that he was released. We ended up keeping Hunter Lipke, the fullback type running back, instead of Malik Davis. He didn't have that great of a camp, so he was beaten out by the other backs. I'll go over that in a minute with all the ones that made the team. Isaac Alarcon, who was our Mexico player that we had for the last couple of years on practice squad, has been released. He's a defensive tackle, and he can play offensive tackle too. Sean McKeon, who was another one that was kind of surprised to me, tight end. He's been released. I'm hoping he lands on the practice squad, which I'm sure he will. Dontario Drummond, wide receiver, has been released, along with Jalen Cropper, another wide receiver. Isaiah Land, who was another bubble player that almost made the team, has been released. He's another possible practice squad player, hoping he can clear waivers and make it to the practice squad. D'Angelo Mandel, cornerback, has been released by the Cowboys, as well as one Tyrus Wheat, linebacker, that's another player that I'd like to see get on the practice squad. He was a bubble player as well. Brock Hoffman, offensive lineman, who started the preseason out really good. I thought he was going to make the team, but it ended up fizzling a little bit toward the end. He got released. Earl Bostick, offensive tackle, has been released. And Matt Farniok, offensive lineman, who I never would have thought would have got released, has been released by the Cowboys. Another possible practice squad player, but I'm kind of thinking he's going to get picked up by somebody. Malik Jefferson, linebacker, and of course Will Greer, quarterback. was released when we picked up the quarterback from 49ers, Trey. Uh, yeah, he's landed with Cincinnati Bengals. So Will Greer is backup at for Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. Jose Bourbon, wide receiver. Tyron Johnson, wide receiver, and Simi Fehoko has finally been released by the Cowboys and has been picked up by the Pittsburgh Steelers. His cousin plays for the Steelers on the practice squad as well, so Simi Fehoko is currently on the Steelers practice squad. Princeton Fant, tight end, has been released. Alex Priolo, has offensive tackle, has been released. Darrell Johnson, defensive end. Miles Brooks, linebacker. Josh Butler, cornerback. And Tyler Coyle, safety, for the Cowboys, has been released. Now, there is 4 players that have been put on injured reserve, which means their season is over. And that is one, Josh Ball, offensive tackle, who had a lot of times teams, what they'll do so they don't have to count them towards being released. And if they really have kind of like a player, they'll stash him on injured reserve, and that's I think what they did with Josh Ball. They're kind of on the bubble with him. They don't know whether he's good enough to keep or good enough to get rid of. So he had a bit of an injury there at the end of camp, so they've placed him on season-ending injured reserve. Also, David Durden, wide receiver, has been put on injured reserve, along with, of course, DeMarvion Overshown. As you know, he had the knee injury. Linebacker, and John Stevens Jr., tight end. He's another tight end that we had a lot of aspirations for. He also had a knee injury. He's out for the season. So those are your cuts for the Cowboys. And now what I'd like to do is go over the actual roster that made the 53. And again, remember, this could change. I don't think it's going to change drastically. It might be a player or two here and there. But I did want to remind you all that this could change. But here's the, by position, here is the players for the Cowboys that made the roster. So, of course, quarterback, Dak Prescott, our second backup quarterback, Cooper Rush, and, of course, Trey Lance, who we just acquired, currently is the third-string quarterback. Now, the rest of these players that I'm going to name, I'm not putting them in any particular order, but I'm just going to rattle off to you who actually, by position, has made the team. Running back, Tony Pollard, Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, and Hunter Lipke, who, like I said, is a fullback type power running back who beat out Malik Davis and has made the team, which I was kind of glad to see him make the team. It kind of reminds me of old Daryl Johnston a little bit. He's got that kind of power. And he can catch the ball out the backfield. He's a decent blocker. So I think they're going to use Hunter Lipke kind of in place of Zeke Elliott and help him on the goal line and goal line rushes and such and pass blocking. Wide receiver, kept C.D. Lamb, of course. Brandon Cooks, who we got in an off-season trade. I think he's going to be a real big asset. Got a lot of speed. Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup's due to have a good year this year. He was kind of weak last year coming off that knee injury. I think he's going to be back this year full force. Jalen Tolbert, who had a great preseason. He looked like he finally learned the ropes a little bit. Tolbert had a real good camp. Cavante Turpin, who we normally use as our kick returner, and he's played more wide receiver lately. We kept him. And rookie Jalen Brooks, who surprised everybody, beat out Simi Fehoko, and he was kept on the 53. So good for you, Jalen Brooks. He had a really good preseason and opened some eyes, I guess. So they kept Jalen Brooks. Now, tight end, real simple. Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, and Luke Schoonmaker, our second-round draft pick. Schoonmaker probably be second string, I would imagine. Jake Ferguson probably be starter. And they use Peyton Hendershot in lots of different other situations. So those are your three tight ends. Now, the next group is offensive linemen. The starters, of course, Tyron Smith. Left tackle, Tyler Smith. Left guard, Tyler Biotish is your center. Zach Martin is at right guard, and Terrence Steele is right tackle. That's your starters. And they kept two others on the roster, Matt Walesko and T.J. Bass, who is a stud. He's good, man. He did good in the preseason. He's a beast. So I was glad to see them keep T.J. Bass. Next group is defensive end. Of course, Micah Parsons and Tank Lawrence and Dorrance Armstrong are going to be your main three defensive ends, along with Sam Williams and Dante Fowler are your defensive ends. Next group is defensive tackle. Of course, our number one pick, Mozzie Smith, made the team. Jonathan Hankins, nose tackle. Osa Odigizua, of course, and Junior Fahoko made the team, along with Chauncey Golston. So that'll be your 5 defensive tackles. And the linebackers are Leighton Vander Esch, LVE, of course, Damone Clark, Devin Harper, and Marquise Bell, who's really a safety, but he plays in a lot of those nickel packages, and he's a linebacker in a lot of those packages. So he's kind of what you call a borderline linebacker / safety. But Marquise Bell, he's a good ball player. Cornerback, Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore, who we acquired in the offseason in a trade, along with Deron Bland. Jordan Lewis was brought back for another year. He's a veteran that we've had for about 5 years, 6 years. Noah Enigmi, that's the new guy we got from the Dolphins. And rookie Eric Scott made the team. And Nashawn Wright made the team as a corner. So we've got that group of corners that made the team. And at safety, Donovan Wilson, one of our safeties, Jerron Kearse, and Malik Hooker is probably going to be your starters there. In and out, of course. You only have 2 safeties in at a time, but sometimes they have different packages where you might have 3. And Israel Mukwamu made the team, along with Wanye Thomas, to round out the safeties. So you got 5 safeties there. And of course, final 2 to make the 53 are our specialists, which is kicker Brandon Aubrey, who I feel has done a pretty good job in the preseason games. And our punter is Brian Hanger. So that's the 53 as it stands right now. There's a few players that were cut that they'll probably bring back, like the long snapper, and his name is escaping me right now. He's a new guy that we have on the team. But other than that, that's pretty much the Cowboys roster as it stands right now. The state of the Cowboys, and I think they did a pretty good job on that roster. So if anything else breaks with the movement on the Cowboys roster, I'll be sure and get back on here. But as of now, that's where we stand with the Cowboys roster. With that being said, I do appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all next time. I'm out.